Good morning, Year 9. For those of you that don't recognise my voice, it is Mr. Deaton here, and I will be doing the Year 9 biology lessons. Just in case you are unaware, there is a narration on this, so if you are hearing this, then that is perfect. There is instructions on there for those people that can't. We're going to be moving on to the biology paper 1. We would have normally done a physics assessment on the physics that you have covered, but obviously we won't be going ahead with that. So we're going to be moving on to the next chapter, biology, and we're going to be looking at cells to begin with. If you are looking for any resources outside of this, you are doing the AQA Combined Science Trilogy course. So just make sure that it is the AQA specification, and sometimes it will ask if you're doing Synergy or Trilogy. So just make sure that you are clicking on the Trilogy stuff. There will also be work uploaded onto Sam Learning and or Doddle that will accompany these lessons. So please make sure that you do those. For this lesson, you are going to need your exercise book if you took those home, or if you do not, some lined paper. We are going to be doing some cell diagrams, so you are going to need a pencil and obviously a pen for writing. Now, in this first chapter, there will be a lot of overspill from Key Stage 3. So we're going to start looking off at the cell structures of animal and plant cells, which you should have already covered. So hopefully that will be a revision for most of you. And then in further lessons, we're going to be looking at the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, and also different specialized cells. There is a required practical in this topic, which is microscopes. So we will be doing a lesson about using microscopes and going through that required practical. But when everything is back to normal, obviously you'll be able to do that yourselves with our equipment. What I'd like you to do first is put the following 5 parts of an organism into size order. So I would like you to write down the 5 different parts going from the smallest to the largest. Now throughout this video we'll be asking you to pause so that you can complete the different activities, and then we'll go through the answers so you're able to self-assess. So can you pause this video please and put that into the correct size order from smallest to largest. Welcome back. Hopefully you had a go at that activity. So we'll have a look at the size order. The only word that should be new to you is organelles. The rest of them were covered at Key Stage 3. So if we put them in size order from smallest to largest, we start off with organelles, and those are the parts inside the cells. Then moving up, we go to the building blocks of life, that is cells. Then if we have the same cells performing a function, then that is a tissue, so things like cartilage and muscles and tendons and ligaments. If we have several different tissues coming together to work together to perform a function, that is an organ. So you should be familiar with many of the organs, the heart, for instance, brain, liver, stomach, loads and loads. If we have different organs working together to perform a task like digestion, then we call it an organ system. So in the digestive system, you have organs such as the stomach, the different intestines, the liver, and all of them are performing the function of breaking down food into easily soluble molecules. Now, in these first lessons, which will be this lesson where we go through the different parts of the cell, but also the required practical, we've got the success criteria. Okay, so have a look through what you need to be able to do. Okay. So as you can see on the slide, we've got 2 organisms. They are single-celled or unicellular organisms. But the question is, what actually is a cell? So I'd like you to have a think about that. I know it does say in pairs, but obviously you're going to be doing that on your own. So I want you to pause the video and just take a few seconds to think about what would a definition for a cell be. If you want to write it down, that would be absolutely fine. Right, so definition for a cell. Now this is a very long definition, so please don't write this down. But a cell is basically an autonomous self-replicating unit that may exist as a functional independent unit of life, so that is the unicellular organisms such as the ones you see at the top, or as a subunit of a multicellular organism, which is most of the plants and animals. They're specialized into carrying out particular functions towards the cause of the organism as a whole. So they are the building blocks of life, and they are able to self-replicate. We're going to look at cell division in a different chapter. And they're either on their own as a unicellular organism, or they are the building blocks of larger multicellular organisms. So as you can see, we've got two types of cells. We've got an animal cell and a plant cell. This would have been covered in Key Stage 3, so in Year 7. What I would like you to do using a pencil is draw out the two cells. Make sure that you have labelled the animal cell, and the plant cell, the plant cell. And have a go at identifying the different structures that have arrows pointing to them. You'll see at the bottom there are the key words. So if you know which one is which, have a go at adding that to your diagram. So can you pause the video now and have a go at that? Wonderful. I hope we had a good stab at that. So in the animal cell, you'll see that there are fewer structures. The plant cells are much more complex. You'll notice that the animal cell does not have a regular shape like the plant cell does, and that is because of certain structures that it contains. So let's see if you were right at identifying some of the different parts of the cell. So on the plant cell, we'll do the ones that are only in plant cells to begin with. In the plant cell, the green structures are chloroplasts, and these are very important in plant cells because this is where photosynthesis takes place. There is in the center a permanent vacuole, again unique to plant cells. And going around the outside, we have a structure called the cell wall, which is what gives the plant cell its regular shape. If we have a look at what is shared amongst both cells, we'll start off with the outside layer of an animal cell, but is within the cell wall on a plant cell. We have the structure cell membrane. We're going to have a look at what each part does, so don't worry about writing that down at the moment. But the cell membrane is very important because it controls what goes in and out of the cell. The dark region in the cell is a structure you should be familiar with, which is the nucleus, and this is what contains all the genetic information. The what looks like empty space but is not is a jelly-like substance, and that's where all of the chemical reactions and things take place, is called the cytoplasm. On these diagram, the blue structures, we have the mitochondria. Please make sure that you have got that in both your animal and your plant cells. A lot of GCSE students forget that plant cells will have these structures. They are very important. Again, we'll look at what their use is. And the smaller circles are called ribosomes, and again you'll find that in both animal and plant cells. There is nothing in the animal cell that you will not find in the plant cell. Plant cells are much more complex. Okay, it's a pause moment again. On the left hand side you'll see that we've got a list of the structures that we just went through. And on the right hand side is the role. They are not matched up, so I'd like you to pause this video and I'd like you to have a go at matching the structure to the role. Okay, hopefully you've had a good go at that. You can add this to your diagrams if you would like to, or alternatively, you can just write it underneath. But we need to know what each structure does and why it is so important in a cell. So first off, the nucleus. Hopefully we realise that the nucleus is what controls the activity of the cell. I would also like to add on to that, which will be relevant in future biology topics, is where the genetic information is contained. The mitochondria, this is where respiration happens. Now, respiration is how we get our energy. So it happens in both plant and animal cells. There's two different types of respiration, but that will come up in a later chapter. They release carbon dioxide, which a lot of people get confused at, and they say that plants won't be respiring because they release oxygen, but respiration and photosynthesis are completely different reactions. Next up, we've got the chloroplasts, and this is where light energy is absorbed and where food is made from a very familiar process called photosynthesis. Again, that is a separate chapter that comes up later in Paper 1 Biology. A structure that will probably be new to you is the ribosome, and ribosome is where proteins are made, or protein synthesis being made. So the ribosomes are very important in making all of the biological molecules, enzymes, hormones, all of which come up in later chapters. Next up is the cell wall. Remember, this is only in the plant cells, and the cell wall is there for support and keeps the shape. So animal cells do not have a cell wall, which is why they do not have that regular shape that a plant cell does. Another structure that is unique to plants is the vacuole, and this contains cell sap and also helps in the maintenance of the shape. Next up is cell membranes. So this is found in both plant and animal cells, and as I said in the previous slide, it's what controls the movement of substances in and out. And there's different ways in which substances can get in and out of the cell, of which we will look at the later part of this chapter. Finally, cytoplasm. This is that jelly-like substance where many of the chemical reactions take place. A little test for you. Got 3 cells here. As you can see, they are obviously plant cells, and each of them is missing an organelle, the structure inside the cells. So what I would like you to do is write down A, B, and C. Can you identify which structure each of them is missing and how you think that that's going to affect the cell's function? So if you could pause this video now and have a go at that. Right, so well done for those people that said that cell A is missing the chloroplast. Now, there are some of the plant cells that will not contain chloroplasts, such as those in the roots, because obviously there isn't any sunlight underground. How do you think it will affect the function? It means that those cells won't be able to make the food, so they're going to have to get their food from other cells that are photosynthesizing. In B, we are missing those blue structures, the mitochondria. What does that mean? It means that that cell will not be able to produce its own energy, and that energy is needed for lots of different things. It's not just about muscle action, which you do in PE. It's movement of substances within the cell, through the cell membrane, and things like that. And cell C is missing ribosomes. And what does that mean? It means it won't be able to make any of its own proteins. And proteins are very important molecules which make up the vast majority of us. Okay, another task for you to have a go at. You'll notice on the right hand side we have a word bank, so it contains all of the different structures that we have done about. I'd like you to draw a very quick Venn diagram. So we've got 2 circles that are overlapping, and I'd like you to put the structures in the right part of the Venn diagram. So if they're only in animal cells, it's going to go in the pink bit on the left. If it is only in plant cells, then it's going to be in the blue bit on the right. Or if you find them in both types of cells, it's going to go in the middle. So if you could pause this video and have a go at this activity. Okay, hopefully you had no problems with that. I'm going to put the answers now on the slide. So as you can see, there are no structures in the animal cell that you wouldn't find in the plant cell. There are many structures that you find in both of them, so the nucleus, the cell membrane, mitochondria, cytoplasm, and ribosomes. And the structures that you will only find in a plant cell is the cell wall, chloroplast, chlorophyll, and permanent vacuole. Now, the chlorophyll is the pigment that you find inside the chloroplasts, and it's that pigment that absorbs the light. Right, so we're going to have a go at some questions now, some exam questions. You'll notice that there are marks allocated for each one, so do make sure that you are putting the relevant amount of information, scientific information, into your answers. Both of them are 4 marks, so you need to make sure that you've got 4 scientific points in each. I'll read them out, and then if you could pause the video and have a go at answering those questions. So question number 1 is suggest why the nucleus and the mitochondria are so important in cells. And number 2, chloroplasts are found in many plant cells, but not all of them. Suggest 2 types of plant cells that are unlikely to have chloroplasts, and in each case explain, so you need to say why they have none. There are some keywords at the bottom of the different structures that you might want to include in your answers. So if you could pause the video now and have a go at those 2 questions. Right, so we're going to go through. You can use a different coloured pen, not necessarily a purple pen, or you could use your pencil, just so you can see where it is that you are picking up points and where you are not picking up points. Okay, so question 1 was suggest why the nucleus and the mitochondria are so important in the cell. Here are 4 different bits of scientific information that you could have given. So the nucleus, that's really important because that's controlling all of the different cell activities, the things that are happening inside the cell. They also contain the instructions, that genetic information for making new cells or new organisms. And we're going to look at cell division in a later chapter. Mitochondria, this is the site of aerobic respiration. Now, don't worry if you didn't put aerobic respiration, but hopefully you have mentioned that it is respiration. And that's really important because that is where the energy is released for the cell. Chloroplasts are found in many plant cells, but not all of them. You had to suggest 2 types of plant cells that won't have them, and in each case explain why. So you could have had any 2 from root cells, which I mentioned earlier because there's no light underground. You might have put cells in the flowers of plants, because that is not their function to make food or photosynthesize. It's there to attract pollinators. There are also several other valid suggestions. You might have spoken about the stem, because that is in most plants, or the trunk. Most parts of the plant is just there for support. So it's all about thinking about which ones will or will not have these different structures. Well, thank you very much for bearing with me, Year 9. This is my first video that I have recorded. Hopefully they will get better as we go through. I would like to say very, very well done for logging on and completing these activities. It is very important because you will be sitting your GCSEs in Year 11. So we do need to make sure that obviously you do not have these gaps in your knowledge. In the Show My Homework, there will be a link to relevant activities that you can now do on Sam Learning or on Doddle, where you can check to see how much that you have taken in. So do the quiz on it. If you're getting a low percentage, then have a go at doing the PowerPoint just to remind yourself, or alternatively, you can review this PowerPoint. Just realised there is an extra slide on here that I forgot that I put on. So if you would like to have a go, or true or false for the following 6 statements, if you read through them, pause the video, pick which you think it is, and then we'll go through the answers in a minute. Okay, so let's have a look at these final questions. So the nucleus controls all the activities of the cell. True or false? That is true. Number 2, chloroplasts contain the green pigment chlorophyll needed for photosynthesis. That is true. All plant cells contain chloroplasts. Hopefully, realize that is false. Number 4, animal cells are smaller than plant cells. Now, the cells that you've drawn are not to scale, but hopefully you're able to see that the animal cells are in fact smaller than plant cells. All cells have a cell membrane. That is true. These are not lining up very well. I do apologise for that. And number 6, only animal cells have a cellulose cell wall. That is in fact false, because it is plant cells. Okay, thanks again, guys. Sorry I missed one of these out. So they are works in progress.